accountable.
Yeah.
Sometimes we ask our students to do things that are not normal for them too. Okay, so for the next 45 minutes, we're going to talk about social patterns. There are two main social patterns: individualism and collectivism. The countries that follow the social pattern of individualism you'll find in the USA, Canada, Australia, South Africa, and most of the countries of Northern and Western Europe. The other social pattern is collectivism. They are predominant in most of the rest of the world. So you can think about Central and Eastern Europe, Japan, Korea, all of Asia, Mexico, Central America, and especially Honduras and Panama. Yes. Think of social patterns as existing along a continuum. And the notes for this start on page 6 in that action guide. The important thing to remember is that nobody is 100% of either one, either in the individualistic side or in the collectivist side. And often it happens to be depending on where you are in your environment or which kind of group you're in at the time. An interesting thing about individualism and collectivism is that adults tend, as we age, to become more collectivist, more group-oriented. Rich or affluent people tend to be more individualistic. The poor, more collectivists. And women, we tend to be slightly more collectivist than men. Slightly more. It also depends on our occupation. So if we work in a job where we're required to work with a team, then the people who can fit into that team will be more of a collectivist social pattern, or follow a social pattern of collectivism easier than an individual would. An interesting fact I found recently was that education and travel, especially traveling abroad, when you're learning about other cultures, actually makes the person more individualistic. I thought that was an interesting quote that I found. Then a friend of mine reminded me that travel is education, and education is something that makes you even more individualistic, or can make you more individualistic. I'll talk just about three different kinds today. Three different emphases. In individualism, the relative emphasis is on independence and individual success. In collectivism, it's on interdependence and the group success. And I'll give you an example of what this looks like in the classroom. If I've just finished giving a test, the kids will come in and my individualistic kids will say, "So how did I do on the test?" And my collectivist kids are more likely to say, "Miss, how did we do on the test?" So it's a tiny little difference from how did I do to how did we do on the test. But it shows a relative emphasis in a social pattern. Am I concerned more with how did we do as a group, collectivist, or more what was my score? The thing I want to point out too is one is not right or wrong. They're just different patterns. They're just different ways of looking at the world. That's all it is. So neither one is right or wrong. When I went to Hungary, I had to learn how to gather, is what I called it. When you get onto a bus or a tram or a trolley, the metro underground, the people, we gather in a group. There's no line. It's kind of a crowd, and there's this crowd of people, and we all get on the bus or the subway kind of in a crowd. Now, at first, I'm very American, very individualistic, so when someone bumps me, I'm going, "Oh, pardon me, go ahead." Now, I've stopped. And what I did is I stopped the crowd. And the people around me were getting mad because I was impeding the flow of the crowd. I eventually learned quickly quickly, you pushed me enough, I learned. Go with the crowd, move together, we're all one. Don't stop and block the movement, that's ridiculous. So 4 months later, I'm thinking, right, I'm so acclimated, look at me, I can fit in, I can get on a bus or tram or trolley, I can do it right, I can move with the people. I go to Western Europe, to Portugal, and there's a trolley, so I'm going to get on the trolley. A couple of people were already in line, like next to the curb. So I come up behind them, and they keep looking over their shoulder at me. What is she doing back there? It's so weird. My friend that was with me had to pull me aside and say, look, they queue. They make a line here. It's more individualistic on the western side of Europe. So sure enough, as soon as I left that crowd and stood in the line, in the queue where I was supposed to so we could get on the bus in this orderly fashion, you could visibly see those people's shoulders go down like, oh, thank goodness. She's off from the crowding from behind me the whole time. So that's another physical way of seeing this individualism versus this collectivism. Have you seen other examples in your classroom of it? Yes. Yeah,
right?
personal, yeah.
Your collectivism, I assume.
We have a bigger bubble, don't we?
Yeah.
We do. And I don't. And are you uncomfortable with me being this close to you to talk? But if you have ESL and collectivist kids from those countries, they're going to wonder why you stayed back so far. Why don't you come in and help me, teacher?
I mean,
come in here.
if I'm like...
Exactly. And that's what I mean by not 100% either. It depends on the environment and what the task is. Yes, Deanna.
So if you have somebody...
That can be true too, because it's impediments like that too. You don't necessarily... It
Like
doesn't
it's
always
not
work, that
disrespectful.
idea of look at me in the face.
Yeah.
And they won't look at me. They look here or maybe here.
It's like disrespectful or something.
Yeah, it's sort of,
right?
it's challenging authority. It's challenging you. And that's disrespectful.
And that's hard to...
I taught Sunday school in a little tiny church, a little tiny Baptist church up in Carson City. And there were mostly American Indian that came there. And the little kid, they were the littlest ones. And I kept trying to get them to look at me too. And it took a while for somebody to say, well, we're Washoe Indian. We won't look at you in the face, you're an adult. So I had to learn to maybe stand next to them and kind of work with them sort of sideways to get things done.
Even if you got down on your knees?
Even
got
though,
their same
that's what I
height,
do. I got down, I'm thinking,
they
oh,
see that you're-
no, I gotta be sure I come in sort of sideways to them. Because otherwise I'm inviting them to challenge me,
Right.
and they can't challenge me. They shouldn't, is what they've learned. Yeah, they sometimes do, that's true. I had a teacher who was talking about, she was Sioux Indian, and she was talking about how kids learn language. And I'm all excited because I'm going to teach kids language. And I'd had a baby recently, and she said, she and her sister, they're Sioux, were in the grocery store, and they saw some, they call them those white mommies. There was a white mommy in the grocery store, and she was pushing her baby in the basket. And when she went by the bananas, the baby went, bah, and the mother's going, bah, did you say banana? Can you say banana? And the kid is like a year and a half old, right? And the Sioux woman and her sister are just laughing and laughing, saying, look how stupid this white mother is thinking she's going to teach her kid language. Because in the Sioux culture, it's not up to the parents to teach language. It's up to the grandparents to teach language. So it's ridiculous to even think that a mother could teach language and that the baby's really trying to talk. And they also don't start until after 2 years old. So don't even try to teach you banana. And I thought about it, it really struck me because it wasn't but a week earlier I was going to the grocery store, my little baby going, can you say mango? Can you say mango? Just like a little idiot too. But again, it was just the way they looked at it. The second point here is that the relative emphasis from the individualistic point of view is on egalitarianism, or to be egalitarian, to be very flexible in our role system. The collectivists are very hierarchical. That kind of goes a little bit with what you were saying about eye contact too. They have a very stable role system. And what I mean is, for example, Dr. Monica Cortez. Now she holds a a doctoral degree in education, so she should be called Dr. Cortez. But it's also okay for me to just call her Monica. Even if we're not close friends, there comes a little point where maybe we first meet and it's Dr. Cortez, see her a couple of times, then it's a, hey Monica, or I call and maybe Carla, the secretary, will say, let me see if Monica's in. Or we're in the same room and she does this.